Friends, here we are on Monday, November the 17th, 5 o'clock for the historians. It's not a very nice day. It's been raining all day, probably all night last night and all day today. It's one of them eastern Massachusetts days that is just cold. You're just cold. And especially if you're old, it's cold. It's like that bone cold. I spent a couple of years in Alaska myself, and it's altogether different, that kind of cold. It's like Phoenix, Arizona in the summer. That heat is different from the heat and the mugginess we get. But a day like today, it's just plain cold. Now, gotta stop saying now, Ed. Okay. The Woburn Historical Society is having a meeting tonight. Author Anthony Sammarco will be the featured speaker tonight at 7 o'clock in the Woburn Memorial High School auditorium. Now, what would he be speaking about? Mr. Sammarco will be speaking about the history of Howard Johnson's. Everybody, at least my age, knows about Howard Johnson's. The orange-roofed ice cream restaurant that began as a one store in Quincy, Massachusetts during the Great Depression and grew into a nationwide empire that delighted generations of families with 28 famous ice cream flavors. Mr. Sammarco's book, The History of Howard Johnson's, and How a Massachusetts Soda Fountain Became an American Icon, will be available for sale after the program. So that's at 7 o'clock tonight in the auditorium, downstairs. Should be kind of interesting. Howard Johnson's. I ate a few ice cream cones at Howard Johnson's, probably something else too, but the thing, I don't want to go into the history of Howard Johnson's, but I think I used to drive a truck a little bit around the eastern part of the United States, and it's one thing you could do is on all the interstate highways, what they thought were interstate highways at the time, there was always a Howard Johnson's. So you could stop and get a cup of coffee and something to eat. And one of the things was that Howard Johnson's food was Howard Johnson's food, whether it was in Mississippi or Delaware or Maine. It was all the same. It probably all came out of Quincy, Massachusetts, under their big warehouses and factories down there. So it should be a real interesting bit of business for people who are a little bit old, because I'm not sure the children today even heard of Howard Johnson's. But anyway, let's go. Like I said, November 17th. November 11th, Veterans Day. I was quite proud in the city of Woburn and the residents of the city of Woburn on Veterans Day. I went down and stood down by Martinez Insurance and see a lot of people that you know. My friend Paul was sitting there, and he was sitting down, standing up, sitting down, standing up. You know, just us old guys, we got to keep the circulation going in our bodies. But I talked to him this morning, and we kind of agreed that I thought it was, he and I thought it was a wonderful ceremony and turnout by the people of the city of Woburn. There's a few people I'd like to really congratulate. One is George Poole. George Poole is like the eminent master of ceremonies for these particular veterans organizations. He's the commander of all the local veterans groups. And he does a great job running the show down there. We had, I think, Larry Giuseppe invited all the World War II veterans. And they had a place for them to park, to get over there and sit on the common. They had chairs. And George read their names. Most of them probably, I think they basically have to be almost 90 or better to be a World War II veteran. I forget how many there were. I think there was 30 altogether. But in the beginning, it was like 20 odd. And then after he read the original ones that were sitting on the common, he asked if there were any more. And a few people shot up their hands. Well, he ran right into the crowd because he thought enough of those guys, which was, I think, a great thought. He thought enough of those guys to say that he wanted to introduce them to the people who were there. So I thought that was a nice touch that he pulled off. Giuseppe, of course, looked good in his Marine Corps uniform. because the Marine Corps had an anniversary this year also. But the whole ceremony was good. We had our usual elected officials. Everybody pretty much spoke their piece. But for the first time in a long time, or first time ever, I guess, that there was a congressman there. It's a woman, actually, congresswoman. I think her name was Clark, and she comes from Melrose. Now, she took Ed Markey's place as our representative when he moved over to the Senate. So I thought that was a pretty slick move by her to come over here on Veterans Day and just say a few words. She didn't ramble on. She just said a few words and congratulated the city of Woburn for having such a wonderful ceremony to recognize the veterans. And last but not least, the parade is always good. You know, I mean, if you like a parade, the kids come, the two bands, a city band and a high school band, and then we have the scouts come. Now you have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Then you have the Boys Club, a group from the Boys Club. You have the younger Scouts, I guess they're Cub Scouts. I'm not really sure. I should have checked a little closer, but I think that's, there was a good group of young children there who stayed there right on the common for the whole ceremony and got a little bit of taste of what being a veteran might be. So I think that the whole thing, I was very proud of the city, the way the common looked, the amount of people that showed up, and I guess the way the ceremony went. So congratulations to the Veterans Agent, Larry Giuseppe and George Poole for putting, and everybody else who put on a fine program there representing the veterans on Veterans Day. So thanks again. The Woburn Redevelopment Authority and their sign program is working very well. They have X amount of dollars. They're trying to get the signs to look a little bit, you know, if you got a nice business and you got a nice sign, you have to have a nice sign so you can advertise to people what you do there. You know, if I put Ed Walker's Tailor Shop, well, people see that that's my name, and then what do? I sew clothes, or I clean clothes, or I have a tailor shop there. So you have to have a sign. Now, what they're trying to do is get all these signs. And this is going on for a while now. You have to have a sign that looks halfway decent, you know. I mean, we got a few places in the center where the people really, I guess they're not interested in what the sign looks like. All they're interested in making is money. So I don't know how I don't know how the Redevelopment Authority is going to handle some of the people who just don't want to change. But neon signs are on the downside. They don't fit into the program at all. So if you're going to put up a neon sign, forget about it. You're not going to get any money from the city. In fact, you might have trouble able to put it up now. But somebody always comes up with a trick, like it said in the Times. They were getting after them about the neon signs in the windows. So now they move them over a little bit, and so it meets the law. But the whole bottom line with the sign business is to make the center look better. So, you know, if you're doing business with somebody down there and you think that they could have a new sign, you might suggest it, you know, in a nice way. Say, you know, you can get some dough from the city and help you out, put up a nice new sign, better for business, better for the city, better for everybody. So you can think about that. The winter parking ban went into effect last Saturday, the 15th, at 2 a.m. I don't know why they have everything done at 2 a.m. Somebody out there banging a whistle or something that the cops know when to go out and say you can't park on the street anymore. But it's a big deal. Having had some time, I plowed snow, and if you can do a nice job. I mean, the kids today do a better job than we did with the old trucks that we had. But the new equipment, they do a real good job. But when you have a street, and most of the streets are narrow, you know, like I live on Vernon Street, so if one person or two people park on the street, then they have to go around, and then the snowstorm is over, and then the car moves, and that parking spot is always there with the snow, and then people run over it. It's pretty bumping. So, you know, if you can get the car off the road, get it off the road. That's the way it should be, because I'm not so sure how heavily enforced. I don't think the police department is running around at 2 o'clock in the morning writing tickets on people who are parked illegally on snowy days or winter days. You know, I mean, I don't know why you can't park there on a cold night, but if it's going to snow and there's a forecast in the snow, you got to get the car off the road. It's better for everybody. So try that out and see what happens. School Security Forum. We're here in a school. I'm here pretty much every morning at the Woburn Memorial High School, right here in the studio. Now, we've had, since all these shootings in these schools, the government comes along and says, you know, you have to do something. You have to educate the children relative to what's going on and how it goes on and what are the ramifications and how long it's going to take for a police department to get there to help you, or how long it's going to do to come with an ambulances or fire trucks or whatever the situation is. So they invite all the children down to the, all the young people, I should say, young adults, down to the auditorium, and they tell them basically what the law of the land is and how they should react to a situation that's we don't even want to think about, but they have to know what to do. And when it first started, one of the things was we had to get all the kids and round them up and put them in a classroom or in a room, a secure room, and lock the door if you could, and set them down on the floor, and slide a piece of paper under the door. The door's locked now, so nobody can get in there. So you can slide a piece of paper under the door, so when the event is over, the police department would come by, or somebody would come by and see the paper there, and then knock on the door and open it and say, okay, we're all set, we're all ready to go. Now, along with that, they tell the children or the young adults, you can't use your phone. Don't call mom. There's thousands of people calling up the police department in every school, and everybody's in a dither, so don't be calling up. It just ties up all the phones. Well, that's easily said, but you know they're going to do it. They're not even supposed to have a phone, but they all got phones anyway. So that was a problem. I'm sure there were other little problems that they had, you know. Of course, I mean, I think if some probably had an idea that they could, if they found out something was going awry in the cafeteria, and we're at this end of the school, at the gym end, then they could run out that end of the building. So, you know, it's pretty hard to control a bunch of 15, 16-year-old kids when there's an emergency going on, because you're outnumbered. There's 1,300 kids in this school, and I don't know how many teachers, maybe 100 or so. So that was pretty difficult. So now, as they learn from some of these other cases that happen all over the country or the world, they got a different way to do it. And one of the things they did was they had the kids come down to the auditorium and they explained the new policy for how things will happen. And then at another time, they had the parents come, separate from the children. And then they told them. So now, whether they tell them the same story or a different story, I'm not exactly sure. But everybody has been informed as to what the situation is if there's an event that happens in the school. So we have had some lockdowns here, practice lockdowns, and it's pretty difficult to keep 15 or 16 kids under control for 15 minutes, a half an hour, or an hour, depending on what the situation is, before they decide that they're going to get them release them. I mean, it's pretty hard to control them when there's a fire drill, never mind if there's somebody down in the auditorium doing something bad or in the cafeteria. But they're beginning to learn certain things. I think I talked to Detective Fiorello, who's our guy down here. He's a police officer that's assigned to the school, about most of these things happen right in the beginning of the school. Like you come in the front door, and anybody that's around the front of the school or in the foyer there at the front of the school, that's where the problems usually are. And then it seems like they head off to the cafeteria because that's where people are. They want to go where people are because they claim that's where they're going to go shoot all these people. But basically what usually happens is they shoot a lot of bullets. They might kill a few, kill one, wound a few, and then they shoot themselves. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist, and there isn't one in the country that can tell you why they do this. But it happens, and we have to have the kids aware of what to do. So if you have a child in the school system, you can't scare them. I mean, I don't want to scare them either. But if you have a child in the school system, you know, and you're just batting the breeze, you might just want to mention it that you know, there are people here that are aware and awake and what's going on and watching out all the time. If somebody wants to get into this school with a gun, they can do it. You can do it. It's not impossible, but you could do it. Because there's doors, there's a million doors here. There's a million people coming and going. There's people, salesmen, there's other substitute teachers coming in. There's people delivering food to the cafeteria. There's workers that are doing jobs here, plumbers and electricians. And even at night, there's classes here for all kinds of people. This is like a going concern all the time. So the doors are flapping back and forth. Now, when they close, they lock. And you have to have a certain badge to be able to open the door. Then that shows that you belong in the school. So if somebody was trying to get in, they would have a difficult time trying to get into the school. So it's just something that's getting better all the time. Like Mr. Finnegan's the principal, you know, they learn from something that happened in Oregon, or they learn something that happened in Texas. So they take that and they move up. Maybe someday that they'll be able to say, well, we don't have to do that anymore because nobody's going to have a gun to bring to the school. That would be great, but I don't think that's going to happen either. So just kind of mention it casually to your child if you have one in a school, that if something happens, that they should do what the teacher directs them to do and trying to stay under control. That's a great bit of business is going on in Woburn, huh? We have to worry about the kids getting killed in school. Jesus. All right. Human Resources Director, there's been 5 applicants. Mrs. Cox was Human Resources Director. She retired in September. And they advertised and they got a few people, got down to 1 person, and then there was a little argument, a discussion over the salary. And so that person dropped out at the last minute, so now they went back and started over. They advertised the Human Resources Director's job, and 5 applicants have applied for $91,000 a year, not a bad pay. The mayor has spoken up for maybe a friend or a co-worker that he knows that has worked here with Mrs. Cox for a long period of time. I think it's Mrs. Prine, Miss Prine, I don't know, and I don't know her at all. So, you know, she's worked there, she knows how to do the job. She's been doing the job since September, so he would recommend her for the job, but that's not his appointment, so he kind of has to stay out of it. So it's a city council appointment, and I believe the president of city council, Mr. Haggerty, has said he'd like to have a vote on that particular position in the first council meeting in December, which I don't know when that is, but it's going to be coming up here pretty quickly. So that'll fill up our Human Resources office. Now, don't say now, now. Every time I change subject, I say now. In the 30th Middlesex District, we get a report from the person who sits in that seat. He doesn't want any licenses for undocumented workers. No driver's license for undocumented workers. I understand his concern about undocumented workers, because if they're undocumented, they're illegal. You know, I have friends that say, well, if it's legal or illegal. So if you're undocumented, you're here illegally, so why should you get a driver's license? You know, it's a hard thing. I'm not a sociologist either, so I don't know where they come down on when immigrants come to the country. My mother came from Ireland as an immigrant way back in the 1920s, and I'm not so sure how they got here. She came on a boat, I know that, I remember that story, and but I don't know whether they issued green cards when they got here, or how they became legal or whatever. I remember stories my father would tell when every time he had too many beers and she gave him any guff, he'd say, "I'm gonna have you deported, so be quiet." So she didn't become a citizen until later on in life, got a driver's license legally, and proceeded on with her life. Now, I don't know how these people coming into the country today do it. But I always think of myself and say, if I was stuck in Brazil for a couple of years or 2 or 3 years and I couldn't get a driver's license, I'd drive a car anyway. You know, you get caught, what do they do to you? What do they do to you if you get caught without a license? I have to call Ferrillo tomorrow and ask him and say, what do they do if you stop a guy or a woman and they don't have a license? What do they do? Take the car and take a car away from them and then ship them on the way, or arrest them and send them back to wherever they came from? I don't know how they do it. But I know one thing, we have a lot of documented people driving cars drunk, maybe 4 or 5 times drunk, and killing people. Every day, every single day. There's some guy that he's been driving a car and this is his 10th DUI. Maybe 4th, maybe 5th. And he crashed into a tree and he killed a woman that was with him in the car. And he's just waking up this morning saying, what happened? Give me a drink. You know, nothing happens to them. It doesn't stop them from driving a car. So as far as the license is concerned, it doesn't stop you from doing anything. You don't need a license to drive a car. What you need is the key to it. That's all you need. So I don't have any sympathy. You know, I got to get this guy off of this business of the immigrants. And while I was thinking of it, a couple of things came to mind. We have hundreds of families in the paper over the weekend, hundreds of families, at least in eastern Massachusetts, they're living in motels. Now, I don't know how much that cost, but I bet it costs hundreds and thousands of dollars. So I don't know why we can't do something about that. So I'd say to Mr. Dwyer, let's work on getting the people out of the motels. Now, the governor appointed all his middle management people to jobs in the departments where they were supervising. So now they belong to a union, and we can't get rid of them, supposedly. So now Mr. Baker comes in, and he can't get rid of all DeVal's people because he appointed them to all these union jobs in the administration. So Baker has got to absorb all those people, and then he's got to appoint new people to the jobs that those people had. Now, that's not right. That's not right. So let's work on that a little bit. So I think there's plenty of things that we could work on besides worrying about who got a driver's license and who don't have a driver's license. We spent, now the bridge, Long Island, this is the trouble with reading the paper, I shouldn't read it so much. Long Island is an island in Boston Harbor where they have a hospital and they have some places, buildings where homeless people live. And you have to go across a bridge to get there. Now the bridge is in a state of disrepair. And we're going to listen to a lot of politicians moaning and groaning because there's no tax money. We didn't vote for raising the gas tax. So now they're going to say, well, we don't have any money, so therefore all those people have to either live on a boat or I don't know what they're going to do with them. They're trying to find a place now for them to live. But the mayor of Boston just emptied the whole island, left everybody had to leave their clothes, left everything behind, and he's trying to find a place for them to live where they don't have to cross a bridge to get to their home. Now, the gasoline tax, which he agrees to, Representative Dwyer, he'll vote for it. He'll vote for it. But the people who take non-tax pledges, they say, I'm conservatively, let's see how they say, oh, I'm financially conservative, but liberal in other areas. But, so I'm not going to raise your taxes. I want to go to Boston, but I'm not going to raise your taxes. Well, the only way you can get anything done is to raise taxes, to spend money. But I mean, you have to make sure that the money is spent properly, that's for sure. So I mean, this is where the rubber hits the road, you know what I mean? That's the biggest problem. Like he says, the bottle bill, we didn't need the bottle bill, we're just gonna recycle what we're doing, papers and bottles and the nickels, and who gets the nickels? Nobody knows where the nickels are, or who gets them, and where they are, or whatever. But people just throw all the beer cans away. All my sons-in-laws drink beer, and the nickels go in the trash, you know. And I used to spend some time picking them out, but it is a difficult thing. They load them all up, take them to Demoulas, put them in a machine, that don't work. Take them down to Green Street, that's a pain in the butt. So therefore, they just get thrown away. And I don't know who gets them. The trash guy gets them, he picks them out or whatever. But the problem is it's trash, it's litter. Because you can go out here after a football game or go out to any of the parks in the city where there's been some bunch of people around, and you'll see when the games are over, later on in the day, that the trash is there. It's the trash we're trying to get rid of. So we thought that maybe if you put a nickel on the plastic bottles, this thing right here, if you put a nickel on it, we'd eliminate that. But that's not the problem. The problem is litter. And we have to do something about it. I had an opportunity to talk to the mayor a week or so ago, and he said that he got a reasonable amount of calls from people saying, would he send a sweeper or have somebody sweep up or clean up a certain street or a certain area in the city, because there's nothing there but trash that people leave. And that's because we have let the children down, because when it came to litter bugs, you know, my own children who are now in their late 40s and 50s are saying, you're a litter bug, Dad, you're a litter bug, you're a litter bug. You dump the ashtray on the street, and you know, throw cigarette butts out the window, and every time you did something right, they said, litter bug, litter bug. So you had to learn how to deal with that. And everybody did it at the same time. And then you turn around and seatbelts. I go to say, my daughter calls, say, will you take your grandson to the dentist? Sure. I go pick him up, I throw him in the car. He's sitting in there, and he says, you can't drive the car, you don't put the seatbelt on. I can't go. I have to have my seatbelt on. Oh, good grief. You know, now he's 4 years old, he's telling me I gotta have a seatbelt on. But that's where they learn. They learn, those little kids learn in school, they come home, they educate their parents and their grandparents. So what we have to do now is go back into the elementary schools and tell the kids, let's not be throwing trash all over the place. So we don't need the nickel on the plastic bottles. What we need is for the people not to throw the plastic bottles around. Just pick them up. After you throw it in a bag, take it home and put it in the trash. As far as the gaming law is concerned, I voted against casinos personally, because the law has been a mess from the beginning. Even today, they're talking about in the paper about if another casino opens in the Fall River, New Bedford area, then they get the police, you get the Indians down there, they want to open a casino, then we'll have a casino down here in Everett, and there's going to be tremendous traffic problems at Sullivan Square, and I can guarantee you right now at Sullivan Square, the traffic is unbelievable. But by that time, Wynn will not be trying to get anything. He's already got it. And once he gets it, and he drops that $85 million check on the city or the state, then he's going to start putting the demands on what's going to happen here, there, and everywhere so that he can get his casino built. And as far as the jobs are concerned, the jobs were 4 years ago. They were 4 years ago when the economy was bad. Right now, the economy is getting better. Go to Demoulas, you see Dave and Buster's is getting built over there. Cranes, big cement slabs being put up, big buildings. And things are getting a little better, so I don't care about the jobs at the casino. Unfortunately, or fortunately, if he gets to build a casino there in Everett, then he's got to clean up that whole Monsanto Chemicals. I spent a few years working there, and if he can clean that mess up, it's probably worth it giving him the license to be gambling there. And earned sick leave, that's just a liberal thing that poor people, the average guy thinks he should have. That's why it passed overwhelmingly. You only get 30 hours, I forget how long, but you get so many hours a week so you can get paid in case somebody gets sick and you have to stay home from work. At least you don't lose a day's pay, you know. I think under 50 employees or whatever it was, the number of employees, a smaller company, those companies probably pay their employees anyway, or give them a few bucks so you can't deny them. If somebody's sick, I have to go home, my wife is very sick, or she's having a baby or whatever, I gotta go home, I gotta help her. So then he's not gonna say, well, if you don't show up, you're fired. Because, you know, he can go get somebody else. Yeah, he can go get somebody else, but does he know what you know? No, I don't think so. So therefore, the boss is probably the one that's going to take the stick and say, okay, I'll give you a few bucks, I'll give you half a day's pay, and then you can stay home and then come back tomorrow and everything will be fine. So that's my take on the 30th Middlesex District. Mumbo jumbo in the paper. I don't agree with them all the time. I don't want you to think that I pick on them. But I have to pick on him because you got to keep him awake. You fall asleep, you know what I mean? Nobody's running against him. He's got a free ride. He's going to be in there 6 years. Now, he's going to get some seniority. He's starting to get a little seniority there. He's going to have to, when he starts to talk, people are going to start to listen. A few more years, you know, and then he'll be all set there. So what we want him to do is work on some of these things. Get off of this EBT cards and immigrant driver's license. Give me a break. Go where the money is. I want to go where some of the money is. Hundreds of families living in motels. Give me a break. How much does that cost? Why don't we just build a hotel in Boston and just fill it up full of needy families? Maybe that would work. I don't know. But maybe if I came from Texas and I wanted to rent a motel room somewhere along Route 1 or in eastern Massachusetts, it wouldn't be filled up because all the homeless people we have in the city are living there. But anyway, that's enough. We'll go home and watch. The Patriots won the game. My wife is very happy. I stayed up late. I'm a little cranky, but I'm going to go to bed early tonight. I'm not going to watch Pittsburgh. Maybe I'll watch the Celtics for a while. But thanks for letting me into your house tonight. I really appreciate it. Next time.